Hi, dear ones. My name is Sarah Lustig, and I'm a spiritual guide and a soul harmony coach and an activator. And what that means is I help women tap into their innate wisdom, their innate magic, their innate power, and come back to the wholeness of who they are, their authentic selves, and feel safe being able to express that authentic self out into the world, being able to create calm and safety within to be able to embody themselves fully and embrace who they truly are at their core. So welcome. Tonight I'm going to be talking a little bit about some of my favorite spiritual tools and how I use those in my practice, how they've helped empower me, and how they've helped deepen my connection to myself and my intuition, and how I use these tools with some of my clients as well, and the different ways that we can use all of these different tools. So I have quite a few different tools that I want to talk about tonight, but I also just want to say that with all the tools that I have to talk about tonight, there's also so much more that I could talk about and things that I could spend hours talking about. So I'm just going to dive into some of the tools that I use kind of most frequently, some of the ones that I really enjoy using as part of my regular practice. So most of the things that I use have an element of nature associated with them, and I use a lot of different elements of nature in my spiritual practice. It's very rooted and grounded in the earth and in the elements of the earth: fire, air, water, and earth, right? And so being able to use many different combinations of these tools to help my spiritual practice, to help my own growth. And a lot of these are really good for releasing, cleansing, and purifying. And so I'll talk a little bit about that with each of them as well. So one of the first tools I want to talk about today is flower petals, and being able to use flowers and other natural elements in our spiritual practice. One of the things I love about about flowers is they really do connect us to the divine realms. They connect us to the higher frequencies and energies. And so being able to anchor in energies of heaven, that's where flowers can really help us embody that bliss and embody that joy, embody that vibrancy that flowers have. And I in particular love working with roses. And so these are some different rose petals that I have. There's so much that I will do with these. Many different practices that I use that incorporate flower petals. I might make aura spray using flower petals. I will often use these in offerings, and so I will, take a handful of these to some of my favorite places in nature, and I will just leave an offering wherever I go by leaving some flower petals. And these offerings are different each time. Sometimes I'm leaving an offering for my ancestors, and I'm expressing gratitude for my ancestors for being there for me, for supporting me and guiding me. Sometimes I'm leaving offerings for people of the world. They don't even know. And, sometimes it's kind of a collective offering where I'm offering love to anybody in the world who needs love right now. And so I'll leave these little flower petals as a way to anchor in that intention and anchor in that essence that I'm setting. It might be to create safety for everybody in the world. Sometimes I send my intentions specifically to children. Sometimes I send my intentions specifically to women, or specifically to men, or specific groups of people, specific people in my life, or specific clients, depending on what I'm working with and what the intention of that setting is. And so, working with flowers, there's so many different ways that we can use these as offerings, in ways to say gratitude, and ways to express our appreciation, ways to release. Sometimes I'll use flower petals and I'll let them go in a stream of water to let go of certain things that I've been working on, or certain parts of me that I've been struggling with. For example, recently I let go of this part of me that wants to hold on too tight sometimes, right? And that is afraid of what will happen if I just let go. And so we can use flowers to, in a very powerful and loving way, leave offerings or set intentions and be able to connect with these different parts of ourselves and be able to honor the parts that we're releasing, right? That part of me that holds on too tightly, that's a really beautiful part that is a protective part of me. And so by releasing her in this way, I'm releasing her in a loving and compassionate way. And I'm also releasing the reins on her and allowing her to have more freedom in her life to do what she wants to do and live with more joy and ease, right? And so being able to use flower petals to be able to make our offerings or to be able to release is a beautiful way that we can honor these different parts of ourselves or the different people or intentions that we're working with. Another way that I really love to use flowers is I will add these to a bath, and I'll add some other things that I'll show you soon. And so I'll add these to a bath, which I really enjoy because that, again, it's bringing that connection to our bodies and anchoring in that kind of divine energy and essence into our bodies, which often don't feel very divine, right? They have headaches and they have stomach aches and we have heartburn and we have all these physical pains and inflammation, right, that can be in our experience with our body. And so being able to, again, bring the softness of flowers in allows us also to soften our relationship and our connection with our body, allows us to soften our thoughts towards our body, and allows us to move towards a more loving and open and compassionate energy with our body, which is so, so, so important, especially as women, as we are reclaiming our sacred relationships with our bodies and seeing that our bodies are beautiful things, not weak things. Seeing how our bodies are incredibly strong and powerful places, even if they have also been places of extreme pain at time or deep suffering. And so wanting to be able to honor both of these. And that's something that roses are beautiful symbol for too, is like roses are beautiful, but they also have thorns, allowing us to understand this kind of balance of like, yes, we can be beautiful, but we also need tenderness and care and how we are handled, and to be treated with not necessarily like fragility, but gentleness and tenderness, right? And so being able to work with some of these different symbols in our spiritual practice can be really, really powerful for the different intentions that we might be trying to embody or bring about in our life. I know for me, I grew up with trauma, and so I had to play this very like hard version of myself for a very long time. And so working with flower essence has helped me like soften and come back into this beautiful soft version of myself and to have appreciation for my softness. So being able to work with flowers is a really big, powerful part of my process. And I almost always have rose petals on hand or dried or fresh flowers. I'll keep in my house as well to be able to kind of embody and anchor in that divine energy, that divine frequency. Other spiritual tools that I love to work with are crystals. This crystal in particular is a gift from my aunt. It was in her house while I was growing up for many years, and she gave it to me about a year ago. So this is an amethyst crystal, and amethyst is my birthstone. So for me, it has significance in an extra power and potency for me being my birthstone. But being able to also have that ancestral connection, right, makes it very powerful for me. So we can use different tools to be able to connect with our ancestors, to be able to connect with our ancestral line through, getting them passed down and having things passed down to us and having that connection. I have a feeling this came from my grandfather as well, and potentially from his parents. And so, this is traveling down my ancestry. I will also pass it down along sometime. And so those things can kind of strengthen our connection in our practice when we do have this kind of familial connection that has been moving down. And, the fact that it came from my aunt too, it helps me kind of access some of that divine feminine frequency. And I work with this one to be able to anchor in, my feminine ancestors as well, and being able to ground their support into my life and work with their love, their guidance, their compassion for me. Remember that I have this team of women who look out for me, even if I don't know who they are, right now, and I don't know all of their names. I know that they are there, and I know that they exist. And so being able to work with different crystals, and I have a couple different ones here that I have that are favorites of mine. This is the pyrite crystal. It's a dragon, as you can see. It's one of my favorite newer crystals that I've gotten. This dragon represents one of my guides, one of my dragon guides. And so I work with this crystal when I want to work with that dragon guide, and when I'm working with specific things that I want help from that guide with. And so being able to anchor in our different guides, I don't know if you can see this picture behind me right here. This is Kuan Yin with her dragon as well. So different spiritual guides that we have, we can also anchor in and work with. I also have this little figurine of Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene. And so that is a tool that I work with often, anchoring in divine union within myself, divine union within the collective, anchoring in frequencies of the divine masculine in Jesus Christ, and anchoring in the frequencies of the divine feminine in Mary Magdalene, and having those, again, come into union with each other. Being able to be in harmony with both of our energies and our frequencies, both our masculine and our feminine. And what I love about Jesus Christ and Mother Mary, or Mary Magdalene, is that they were human, right? So they also existed on this earth. They understand the human struggles, and they also embody a greater sense of the divine than most humans have to this point been able to embody. And so they represent that activated Christ consciousness that is just now starting to really return and being anchored into the earth in a more significant way, because it hasn't been safe for the last 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and so on, 200, so on, 300 and so years, right? And that's part of why I'm doing this live today, to talk about my favorite spiritual tools, because it is International Women's Day today, and I want to honor the history and legacy of women that came before me that didn't get to practice the way that I get to freely and openly practice today. I want to honor my own lives, past lives as a woman, in which I didn't get to openly practice the way that I can today, in which my voice, my ancestors' voices were silenced, were people were killed for trying to use these tools and resources that we do have available to us now, that we can openly share our gifts around now, which is so beautiful and so meaningful and so very powerful. And so being able to access these divine frequencies and anchor them in, and using tools like this, or artwork like Kuan Yin and her dragon I have behind me, helps us anchor in these higher frequencies and these divine energies around us, helps us embody them and become the vessel for these energies in our own lives, allowing us to ripple these energies out to the people around us, to our loved ones, to strangers, even to friends, family, everyone. So being able to work with different crystals that call to you, and I have lots of different ones that are favorites of mine, working with different shapes of crystals as well. These ones, having the kind of point to them helps activate different elements and helps anchor them in. And we can place certain crystals on the body depending on what kind of chakras we're working with or wherever we might be storing pain. Crystals are great transmuters for energy, and so we can use these on the body as well to move through where there's stuck energy in our bodies, where we carry certain beliefs about ourselves, or we carry certain wounds related to our experiences, our past lives, or ancestral wounds, right? Many people in this lifetime were born with ancestral wounds because they decided to take on those wounds in order to clear and balance the karma of those wounds. So working with crystals is a wonderful way to be able to clear dense energy, clear different traumas from the body, transmute those energies, move them. These crystals were charged in the full moon last night, so they also have that added energy of the full moon in Virgo, which is a very grounded energy. So these crystals in particular, having that Virgo full moon energy in them, are excellent crystals and energies to be using on the body right now, being that Virgo is an earth sign. And so being able to use these crystals in different areas of the body. If you get headaches, being able to place a crystal where you feel that headache and moving that energy of the headache out of your head and into the crystal so that you are not taking on that energy anymore. It's not staying stuck in your body. Crystals can also help us ground our intentions in. So different intentions that we might have, we can work with different crystals. This one is citrine. So being able to work with this one's great for, success, opportunities and abundance, being able to pull in and anchor in those kind of experiences. So you might, and I'll have clients or myself, I'll write down different intentions that I want, and then I'll place a crystal on top of that, and I'll leave that piece of paper for a couple of days and allow that energy of the crystal to work its way into my intentions and to strengthen those intentions. So there's so many different ways that we can work with different crystals, and different crystals have different properties that we can play around with and take advantage of, and I mean that in the most loving way. We also always want to be mindful that everything has its own energy. This crystal has its own energy, and this crystal has things that it wants and it doesn't want. And so we want to be mindful of that and treat everything with respect, being able to check in with the crystal, and I'll talk about how we can do that, to make sure that we have consent in working with it in this way, make sure that it's on board. We don't want things that are going to be working against us, and sometimes if we're not rooted in our spirituality, we can kind of work against ourselves because we'll activate our upper chakras without being grounded in our lower chakras. And that's when things won't be as successful and things just won't go as well, because we don't have that rooted safety in our lower three chakras in order for things to really be grounded and take off. And so we might make some traction, but it's not going to often last. So we want to be aware of how we work with tools and the proper way to work with tools, and we want to be able to get consent from our tools to be able to work with them, especially when we are working with bigger guides. Like, I was talking about this crystal working with my dragon. I get consent from that, and I get permission with my dragon to be able to work with them in these ways. And my dragon wouldn't even come to work with me if I wasn't ready for that exchange to take place. And so being mindful sometimes that we want to be aware of the energies that we're calling in, and have we done our own work in order to be ready for those energies that we are calling in. So one of the ways that we can get consent is by checking in and asking. And so my pendulum is one of my favorite spiritual tools. I use this on a weekly basis, sometimes a daily basis in my life, to get clarity, to ask questions, to make sure I'm on the right track or I'm aligned with certain things in my life. What I would say is, like, if you're going to work with a pendulum, make sure that you get one that speaks to you. I took my time in figuring out what kind of pendulum I wanted to use and what kind of vessel was going to be really powerful for me. And so this is a combination of different crystals, that clear quartz crystal and an Aberrantine crystal. And I love that it's in the Merkaba. I'm like blanking on the word for a second. I love that it's in the Merkaba shape to be able to also activate even higher. So I love my pendulum. But finding a pendulum that works for you, and also knowing that anything can be a pendulum. I meant to grab a necklace for this as well to demonstrate, but necklaces can be used as pendulums too in a pinch. I've used them before. But whenever you work with a tool like this, you also want to calibrate it, and you want to make sure that it's calibrated to work for you. So one of the ways that you can do that is by asking questions, and we're going to start simply by just asking yes and no questions. So you can calibrate by asking what your name is, and so for me I would say, is my name Sarah? And then I'm going to watch what the pendulum does. And as you'll notice, the pendulum moves forward and back. So for me, that's a yes. And I've worked on this. I've worked with my pendulum long enough, so I know how my pendulum speaks to me. So for me, this is a yes. If I were to ask my pendulum, is my name Bob? you'll notice what starts happening. It might be a little bit harder to see in the video, but it's moving this direction now. So it's moving left to right, which for me is a no, because my name's not Bob. So it's going to answer no. So being able to work with a pendulum is one way that we can get consent from other crystals to ask, do I have consent to work with this crystal? And you'll notice that the crystal, my pendulum, is moving like this direction, meaning yes, as opposed to this direction, meaning no. And so being able to work with a tool like this can be really, really powerful. I also teach my clients different ways to work with this kind of energy. So you can use your body as a pendulum, and that's one of my favorite ways. I often will just check in with my body and find the answer within, and not necessarily need to use a tool that's external to me, although sometimes that is very helpful as well. There are different ways that we can use our body in order to find the answer, and this is something that is nuanced, and so I talk a little bit more about that in my private work and one-on-one work, but is something I'm happy to answer more questions about for you as well. But working with the pendulum can really help us get more of those clear and specific answers and make sure that we do have consent to work with the energies that we're wanting to work with and to tap into those different energies. Other tools that are really helpful and also, something that we want to get consent with are tarot cards and oracle cards. I love different oracle decks. These are two of my favorites. I love this one. This is by, oh my gosh, Sophie Bashford. I just blanked on her name. Sophie Bashford, she just released this in the last year and a half. Goddesses, Gods, and Guardians. I love this deck. I love the artwork, and I'll open it and show you a little bit of that one. And then this one is Kyle Gray, Angels and Ancestors. I also love the images and the artwork in this deck as well. But I have a bunch of different decks that I like to work with, and again, it's really dependent on my mood, my intentions, what questions I'm asking, or what challenges are going on in my life. So this is just a really, really beautiful deck. So many gorgeous images in here. So many beautiful cards, just really rich. I'll try to hold it up too so you can see, Air Guardian here. We've got this little Elder. Right? So just really beautiful, rich cards and imagery. Different cards, different decks are better for certain things, for certain chapters in your life, certain parts of your journey. So it's really an intuitive process, and it's really what you feel called to and what you feel called to work with, what images stand out for you, or what symbols are really powerful for you. This is another oracle deck. This is the one by Sophie Bashford that I mentioned. So again, just really beautiful, powerful images. We can work with different gods and guides and get familiar with different guides through this process as well. Different decks I will use to be able to answer different questions for myself, look at what different themes are coming up for me for that week, what challenges, what kind of medicine I need to bring in to work on those challenges, to overcome those challenges, to anchor in different energies. There's so many different ways that we can work with tarot and oracle decks to be able to strengthen our connection. For a long time, in order to really deepen my intuition and trust my intuition, I was using tarot every single day, and I would draw 3 cards a day, and I would keep track of that in a journal, and I would write about the cards that I drew and what meaning and significance they had to me. And that was one of the ways that I really started to deepen my relationship and get to know tarot even more, and start to see these patterns that were emerging and showing up, and different guides that were coming to show up and wanting to help me on my journey, and then being able to tap into those medicines as well. So those can be really powerful and beautiful ways of also reclaiming different parts of ourselves, or reclaiming different lineages or different ancestors that we didn't even know that we were really connected to. So I love working with tarot and oracle for those reasons. I also want to share with you some different Florida waters that I love working with. These are 3 of my favorites. So this one is a orange blossom neroli scent, which I love. This is one of my favorites. I absolutely love. To me, this is orange blossom is the smell of heaven. Like, it is just such a rich and heavenly smell. So this is one that I work with a lot. And I'll talk a little bit about what that looks like. Palo Santo is another one that I work with frequently. This one is wonderful for clearing energy, clearing dense energy, clearing stagnant energy, clearing energy from other people, just in general clearing our energy field and restoring us to more divine frequencies. This one is called Florida water. And you also want to be aware when you get this one, Florida water, that it's this yellow, golden yellow color, pretty yellow color. It also comes in a knockoff that is like a blue gray color. So don't buy the blue gray color if you buy this. Always buy the golden kind of yellow colored one. But this is Florida water. So I'll use the 3 of these in making aura sprays, which I mentioned earlier when I talked about our roses. I will use these in aura sprays. I will use these in the bath. I'll just add a little bit to my bath. When I'm adding, I'll add these with different intentions. So when I add these to the bath, I'll add in bliss and joy, you know, and so I'm anchoring in those frequencies when I do that. I will spray these on my pillow. I will spray these in my room to clear the energy, to anchor in loving energy, compassion, grace, whatever it might be that I'm working with. And so I'll use those in many, many different ways. They are shamanic waters, so shamans will put them in their mouth and blow them on you to help clear your energy field. I personally don't like putting them in my mouth. I don't think it tastes good, and so I don't do that, but others will. You'll see that sometimes. I prefer to just spray it, and I'll use those with in different flower baths as well for different anointing processes, and being able to, again, just like anchor in these really divine frequencies and bring in love and joy and bliss into our lives, our daily lives. So I use those quite frequently. I also will cleanse and clear my energy on a daily basis with different smudging materials. This is Palo Santo, so again, this is the bottled form of this wood. So I'll use both the liquid form and the actual wood form. And again, just because I'm using them in different ways and different elements, so using that Palo Santo in the water element, anchoring in different things, versus Palo Santo in the earth element, and also activating it with air when we light it on fire. And so we use Palo Santo in order to cleanse and clear the energy of a space or around us, cleansing and clearing different thoughts, different wounds that we carry within. And so just being able to light this on fire until it's burning. And then we'll use it around the body, cleansing the area with intentions, speaking intentions as we do this. Anchoring in different energies, clearing dense energies, heavy energies that just don't serve anymore. And we can do this through timelines, past, present, future, accessing old parts of us that aren't in this lifetime, but playing out still, right? Being able to clear those on a really deep level. Again, this is really highly valued materials to be able to work with, and divine frequencies. So we can use that. This one is a dragon's blood sage, and so this one is really, really good in particular for getting really like heavier, dense energies. So I will burn this in session sometimes when there's a lot of heavy energy, emotions coming up, as we make space for those emotions to be able to clear and release those emotions so they're not being carried and felt so heavily in the body and the energy field, the auric field, right? So around the body as well. So this one in particular is really good for working with kind of like lower dense energies. And so as I do shamanic work, this is one that's definitely in my toolbox to be able to use frequently. With my shamanic work as well, bones are something that I love to use. a lot of people have a lot of fear of bones, but I love working with them because they represent not just kind of our own death and rebirth cycles that we go through, and we go through many, many, many death and rebirth cycles as we are humans on this earth and alive. As different parts of us die, different parts of us come, and so I love to work with bones for that reason. Bones are also, an earth element, and they also represent kind of this ancient element, and so it's bringing in this understanding that like we are ancient beings, we are ancient souls, we are ancient warriors on this path, and so being able to anchor in these ancient frequencies and the frequencies of different animals. So this bone in particular is a deer bone, so being able to kind of access that softness of a deer, that femininity of a deer, being able to bring in that kind of medicine in our work. And I have a couple of different ones. This one I bought, but I also have bones that I found. I found this bone in Colorado on my dad's property in Trinidad, Colorado. And so again, when we have that kind of personal connection of being able to find our own bone, then that like deepens that connection to it as well. So yeah, there's so many different ways that we can work with natural elements, and so bones are one of them. Also different rocks. This is a rock that is from Hawaii, and so I keep this on my desk to kind of also anchor in that energy of Hawaii and when I was there. And so being able to use these different natural elements in our spiritual practice for the intentions that we have. I often work with bones when I'm working with kind of death and rebirth cycles with myself or with certain clients. Again, just like with crystals, we can place these on the body where those places are dying within us. So if we're going through heartbreak, for example, working with bones in the body, being able to remove that heartbreak from carrying it inside in our hearts, in our chest, to being able to pull it outside and carry it in something that is separate from us, but still being able to work with that energy. So that's, using bones, placing them on different areas of the body wherever we might have, different pain or wounds, can help with those death and rebirth cycles, can help us move through those cycles and make that death cycle even easier so that it's not so much suffering. It's not so dense and hard to go through. I'll also work with, this is another, this is a, oh my gosh, why can't I think of what this is called? From the water, from the ocean. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the word right now. I cannot believe that. But this is from Hawaii as well. And so being able to work with coral. Oh my gosh, there we go. Thank you. Coral. A piece of coral from the ocean in Hawaii is, again, helping me to anchor in that kind of water frequency, that divine frequency of the waters of Hawaii, right? Like, my gosh, how beautiful is that? How divine are the oceans around Hawaii, right? If we think of like Pele and the beautiful goddess that she is. So being able to work with these different energies, right? Like I can still work with the energy of Hawaii because this is from there, even though I'm in Asheville, North Carolina right now. So different places or different, objects from those places hold significance as well energetically, and we can work with those in a spiritual way too. And so when I'm wanting to bring some of that water energy in a frequency to my life, I can pull out my coral and work with it in that way as well. Similar with the dragon that I showed you, working with different animal guides. So this is a little owl amulet. So I'll carry this around with me when I'm working with this, with the wisdom of the owl, or I'm trying to call in something in particular and I want the wisdom of the owl to help me with that. I will carry this with me, and there's lots of different animal guides I work with, like the dragon that I talked about as well, and all sorts of guides that I have around me, and eagles and all sorts of things. So yeah, being able to work with those. I'll also work with different essential oils, again, like I will with the aura sprays that I mentioned earlier and my shamanic waters. I will use different scents for different frequencies. lemongrass and frankincense. These are really, really high vibrational scents. And so when I'm in a kind of low vibrational state where I'm just feeling like in a weird funk, when I'm feeling off, I'll use these scents as well to be able to like help lift me back up. Our sense of smell is the sense most closely connected with our emotions. So I'll just put a little bit on my palm, rub my palms together to activate that, and then breathing that scent in. And I'll, pull it through my hair as well so I can get that frequency as well, right? And bringing that energy in. And so bringing in the energy of lemongrass and frankincense, those are really two high vibrational ones that I love to work with. Another one I love to work with, and I recommend a lot with my clients, is white angelica. This one is really, really good if you are a highly sensitive woman, if you are a deeply feeling woman, an empath. White angelica is really good for keeping your vibration high and keeping you in kind of a protective bubble so that you're not taking on the energies of other people. So white angelica is a beautiful one to work with if you are somebody who often finds yourself taking on the energies of people around you and absorbing their energy. Another practice or tool that I absolutely love to work with is plant medicine. And I'll use plant medicine in a lot of different ways. I'll use plant medicine in teas, in tinctures, in powder form, all sorts of different ways. There's plant medicine that is legal and you can get pretty much anywhere. You can get online, you can get locally. And then there's plant medicine that is not legal in all 50 states, but is still extremely powerful and important and helpful for our mental health, for our physical health, emotional health, spiritual health. So I'm going to talk about some of the plant medicine that I use on here today, but there's other plant medicine that I'm not going to talk about on here today for those reasons. Some medicine that I love using tinctures. These are two brands that are local to Asheville, North Carolina, but you can also buy them online. Red Moon Herbs, I'm going to say that backwards, Red Moon Herbs, and then Wise Earth Way. I love both of these companies. They're both female-owned companies, and I also love supporting women who are local, but I love supporting women companies, whether they're local or not. But I always believe in shopping local as much as possible. So you can find different plant medicines in your area, people who make them around you, so you don't necessarily have to go outside of your community. But if you can't find them in your community, then finding them online as well is a great way to do that. There are, these women each have their own website, but also Etsy, and other places online as well. Like I find some of these Florida waters or some of these sacred waters I can find in person. Locally, I found a shop in Asheville that I can find these, but I can't always find all of the scents. So Palo Santo, I typically buy that one online on Etsy, and I'm happy to share my resources with you if you have interest in them. Just send me a DM and we can talk more about it. But taking tinctures is something that I really enjoy doing, and it helps bring that plant medicine in a more powerful way. So often I'll do these, I'll just put a couple of drops underneath my tongue, right under there, and I'll hold the medicine there for a little bit, just kind of like anchoring in those intentions and then swallowing it. This one in particular is called Bliss Activator, so I love that. This one is a combination of mimosa bark and flowers, velvet bean, rose, organic cane, and Appalachian wildflower honey. So beautiful medicine. And then this one's just milky oats. So that's its own kind of plant. Milky oats is really good for the nervous system, for calming and soothing. There's so many others that I use. Holy basil has been one that has been a favorite lately. I'll also use plant medicines in teas and things like that. You can smoke certain plants and herbs as well. You can use them in vapor baths, in pots on your stove, in your bath as well. There's so many different ways. Like sometimes I'll put chamomile flowers in my bath or lavender flowers like I talked about earlier. So There's all different ways that we can work with plant medicine as well to deepen our spiritual practice, to deepen our connection with ourselves, to bring our bodies into harmony and help restore our vitality and our harmony, to help restore our frequency. And crystals are great for that too, to help kind of restore our frequency to higher vibrations, clearing out those dense energies. So, I just want to, there's one more, because I brought so many different tools tonight, and so I just wanted to make sure that I talked about, there's two more actually. One other thing I want to talk about is moon water. So I made this moon water last night in the Virgo full moon. So this is just purified water that I put in a glass container, and I put it out in my windowsill in the full moon so that it would get the energies of the full moon in it. The full moon is a powerful time because the moon represents the feminine, and so it's also a time when the feminine is really in her fullness and her power, right? And so when we can harvest and harness that energy and then being able to work with it. So then I will add my intentions to this water. I'll whisper my intentions in, and I'll mix that frequency and those intentions in this water, and I'll drink it. I might drink it just plain like this. I might add it to my tea. Sometimes I'll add it to my bath. I might water my plants with it, and again, anchor those frequencies and those intentions as I'm doing that into that plant. So I'm kind of grounding in my intentions as I'm watering my plant with these frequencies that the full moon carries. So being able to make our own moon water is really powerful as well. And these are all, I mean, yes, I buy my flowers, but also like these are things that we can get pretty inexpensively, and they don't have to be expensive, things that we can do ourselves and make ourselves. And then the last spiritual tool that I want to talk about tonight is art making. I love using art myself. I love using art with my clients. Art helps us access our unconscious and our subconscious mind so that we can bring what is in our unconscious awareness to our conscious awareness, being able to access what is unknown to us and help it be known to us. So being able to work with different art materials and different types of materials on different surfaces can help us also release, activate, anchor in all sorts of different ways that we can work with them in a spiritual practice. So that's a beautiful way that I love to just work with intentions, work with the unconscious, and anchor that in, help us make that more known to us. So there are a lot of different tools that I talked about tonight, so many different varieties of tools, different elements that have different qualities to them, earth or fire or more watery elements, being able to access these different parts of our own journey, whether we are anchoring in frequencies, whether we are trying to release energies or clear old energies, whatever our intentions are in a spiritual practice. There's so many different tools that we can use and so many different ways that we can use those tools. So if you have any questions about any of the tools that I showed you tonight, or if there's things you want to learn further about those tools, reach out, send me a DM. I'm open to answering your questions, and I have openings in my schedule right now for new clients. So if you're looking to deepen your spiritual practice and you're looking to deepen your connection with yourself and your intuition and your guides, your ancestors, your cosmic team, then please reach out. I would love to work with you. I'd love to hear more about how I can support you and help empower you to be your most authentic, gorgeous, radiant self out in the world. Thank you to everybody who joined. I appreciate your love and your comments, and I hope you guys have a beautiful night. For those of you who weren't able to join the live, I'll be reposting the replay tomorrow. So have a good night. I'll talk to you all soon.